Hello, my name is Nicolaj Hansen.
And my name is Darragh Lacey, and we are doing our project on Chapter 20, Section 3, The Hardships of Early Industrial Life.
What is the Industrial Revolution? The Industrial Revolution was the rapid development of industry in Britain in the late 18th and 19th centuries, brought about by the introduction of machinery. It brought rapid urbanization, or a movement of people to cities. The movement of people to cities was due to changes in farming, a soaring population, and an increasing demand for workers.
What does it take to move a mountain? During the Industrial Revolution, technological and socio-economic mountains were not only moved, but transformed, and the sweeping changes initiated in Britain eventually affected countries all over the world. In the 18th century, domestic peace, economic health, and the availability of critical iron and coal resources in Britain set the stage for change. Ingenuity turned the spinning wheel, a simple craftsperson's tool for hundreds of years, into a time and labor-saving device. It wasn't long before textile and loom factories essentially replaced home spinning and weaving. With the textile industry leading the way, the shift to manufacturing created unprecedented demand for new machines, mechanical components, processed materials, and skilled labor. Transportation systems expanded to keep up with the escalating flow of goods. Cities grew, work became increasingly specialized, mechanized, and urbanized. An agricultural-based economy evolved into an industrial one. The marriage of science and industry produced great changes both at home and abroad. Eli Whitney's cotton gin, 1763. Charles Babbage's mechanical computer, 1834. The first steam carriage, steamship, and steam locomotive. All these inventions emerged within a very fertile 80-year span. And even today, many of the world's mountains are still being moved as the products and processes born of the Industrial Revolution continue to shape and transform our modern lives.
Almost overnight, small towns around either coal or iron mines turned into cities. Other cities grew up around factories that had been built by entrepreneurs. Cities like Manchester grew by thousands. In the 1750s, there were only an estimated 17,000 people living there. By 1780, the population of Manchester had more than doubled to 40,000, and in 1801, there were roughly 70,000 people living there.
In most cities, the population was divided. The wealthy and middle-class people lived in pleasant neighborhoods. The poor people were less fortunate, as they had to live in foul-smelling slums where they were packed into tiny rooms in tenement buildings. They had no running water, only community pumps. There was no sewage or sanitation system. Waste and garbage rotted in the streets, and diseases such as cholera spread rapidly.
At the heart of the industrial city was the factory. The new technology in the factories meant a new, harsh lifestyle for workers. The factory system differed greatly from farm work. Although workers had worked hard in their villages before, their work had varied according to the season, but now they faced a rigid schedule set by the factory whistle. Working hours lasted between 12 and 16 hours daily. An observer stated, "While the engine runs, people must work. Men, women, and children are yoked together with iron and steam."
Workers were faced with many dangers. The people who worked in factories faced the possibility of losing a finger, a limb, or even their lives from machines that did not have any safety devices. Mine workers breathed in coal dust, which destroyed their lungs. Textile workers were constantly breathing in air filled with lint. Adding to these dangers, many working-class people didn't have good pay. They often lived in poverty and didn't have many personal items, and they were often harmed permanently from poor working conditions.
Women made up a large amount of the new workforce. Employers preferred them as they were thought to be more able to adapt to new machines and easier to manage. More importantly, though, is that they could be paid less for the same work.
As well as women, many children were hired. Parents accepted the idea of child labor as it helped support the family. Families couldn't keep living without the wages of their 10-year-old children. Their size allowed them to fit through narrow mine shafts. Nimble-fingered and quick-moving children chained spools in textile mills. Orphans were hired as well, and they worked for long hours for minimum food. Local officials were glad to get the orphans off their hands. If a child was caught or accused of idling, they would be beaten. Another reason why children and women were chosen to do the work instead of men was because they could be paid less for doing the exact same work, and more often than not could do the job just as well. One bad thing about hiring women and children was that they couldn't carry around as heavy loads as the men, but factory owners chose to hire them because they were easily replaceable, and the owners thought that the pros outweighed the cons.
One girl, called Patience Kershaw, spoke about the horrors that child laborers faced. She spoke about how her father had been dead for a year and she was being raised solely by her mother. She had worked for as long as she could remember because her mother needed the money to support her and her 9 siblings. She had never attended school. Even though she couldn't read and write, she attended Sunday school because she was quite religious. She says that on average, she worked 12 hours a day from 5 to 5. In her day, she goes to the factory at 5 in the morning, ate breakfast consisting of porridge and milk, and she brought her dinner with her and she ate it as she worked. She doesn't stop for breaks at any time during the day, for fear that she will be beaten or picked on by the men working in the mines. This was common for child laborers, and many young children suffered injuries at the hands of older men for not working hard enough or for not working at all. Once people heard about the horrors happening to child laborers, many called for reforms from the government.